Tonight, part 2 of our train journey through Russia. Railway visits the cities of the Golden Ring and Moscow. Right now, we're heading for the city of Archangel. At the end of this episode, we'll return to St. Petersburg, the city where we began our train journey 5,500 kilometers earlier. When we approach Archangel, we soon discover that we're dealing with a big city here. Archangel has 800,000 inhabitants. Archangel was founded in 1574 by Tsar Ivan the Terrible. That the city has lasted for some centuries can be seen by the old buildings. For example, this church and the beautiful Art History Museum. In the 17th century, the city formed the headquarters of Tsar Peter the Great's mighty Russian army, mainly due to its strategic location. The city is located on the Severnaya Dvina River, which flows out into the White Sea just behind the city. During the summer, the water is used for recreational purposes. Just outside of the city, we find the Museum of Russian Wooden Architecture. Here we're welcomed with a typical Russian welcoming ritual.
Рады, что решили вы в сей достославный день почтить вниманием красоты наши дивные.
In the bell tower, they're playing the carillon. A few times a day, the visitors are treated to this musical intermezzo. While the music of the chiming bells resounds, we walk around this open-air museum. The beautiful wooden cathedral is a real eye-catcher. The wooden mills that were once a feature all over Russia are part of the collection too. Together with the houses that are standing here, these mills are all examples of the wooden architecture Russia is famous for. Back at Archangel Station, they're about to put the finishing touches to our locomotive. If everything is in order, the locomotive will slowly put on steam. We're headed for our next destination, Vologda. We're slowing down, and this means we're now approaching Vologda. On arrival in Vologda, we soon discovered that this is another part of Russia. Just by looking at the station building, one can see that the architectural style is much more exuberant in comparison to what we've seen before. Vologda is a beautiful city with about 200,000 inhabitants. Old and new houses stand jumbled together everywhere. Until the 17th century, Vologda was the most important city in Russia. Then this role was taken over by Moscow and St. Petersburg. This church still stands here as proof of its former glory. Once every decade, they organize a festival here in honor of the important position Vologda has in Russia's cultural history. For the first time, the festival is accompanied by a big feast on the village square. This cultural festival isn't just a local matter. Music, dance, and theater groups from faraway districts, even Moscow and St. Petersburg, put in an appearance.
Hurrah! Hurrah!
After this cheerful farewell, we return to the station. The locomotive is waiting, so we're on our way. We're headed for the cities of the Golden Ring, of which Kostroma is the first one we'll visit. We're already approaching Kostroma. The Golden Ring is the name for a number of very old places northeast of Moscow. As far as the political and cultural heart of Russia goes, these places stand above the capital city. Kostroma originally dates from the 12th century, but was completely destroyed by a fire in 1773. The city was rebuilt during the reign of Catherine the Great. In the big square stands an extraordinary 19th century fire tower, which still is in use. The tower is on UNESCO's list of World Heritage Sites. The St. Ipati Monastery is the city's showpiece. This monastery was founded in 1332 by the Tartars. Later on, several czars maintained strong ties with the monastery. The banished Michael Romanov lived in this monastery at the time he was chosen to be czar in 1613. From that day on, all of the Romanovs who later ascended to the throne paid a visit to this monastery after their appointment. The monastery garden may be neglected, but it's still a pleasant place to stroll around. We're leaving Kostroma and are on our way to Yaroslavl, the next city of the Golden Ring. It's just a short ride of 70 kilometers. Along the way, we cross the railway bridge over the Volga River. After a short while, the gong announces that we're already approaching the next station. We arrive at Yaroslavl Station, the second of the cities of the Golden Ring. Yaroslavl is a relatively large place within the Golden Ring. It has 680,000 inhabitants. The city is located at a point where the two rivers, the Kotorosl and the Volga, converge. During the 16th and 17th century, Yaroslavl was an important port from which was conducted business and trade with the Middle East and Europe. The variety of churches can be attributed to the rich merchants who lived here during that time. They tried hard to compete with Moscow in building the most beautiful and largest churches. Certainly during the summer, Yaroslavl has a pleasant atmosphere. On the boulevard along the banks of the Volga, they frequently organize dancing parties. After a short visit to Yaroslavl, we returned to the station building, a place from where many trains daily depart for the big cities. We're leaving Yaroslavl to continue our voyage of discovery along the cities of the Golden Ring. Our next destination, Vladimir. The cities of the Golden Ring are located close to each other, so it doesn't take long before we arrive at Vladimir's station. Vladimir is already 900 years old and has 350,000 inhabitants. Here we also come across many churches and monasteries. It's striking that so many churches are still in good condition, despite 75 years of communist oppression. In addition, most of the cities work hard to restore the damaged churches again. A beautiful statue in the middle of the city symbolizes Vladimir's most important periods, with a warrior who founded, an artisan who built, and a communist workman who made the city great. Just outside Vladimir, we discover Suzdal, a village of only 12,000 inhabitants. Although this place also has a museum of wooden architecture, a large part of the inhabitants are still living in wooden houses themselves. The city is an official monument, which means it's not allowed to set up industry here. This village also has an incredible number of churches and monasteries, of which most are still in excellent condition. Located in the center of Suzdal is the Kremlin, a fortress with several churches in it. This 11th century cathedral, which is currently undergoing restoration, is the village's showpiece. The former archbishop's room at the top of the cathedral is still in perfect condition. The Sisters of Suzdal live a bit further down, in a convent where once the ex-wives of the Tsars were taken care of. During the Soviet period, the convent was used as a hotel for highly placed party bosses, who spent the night in the wooden izbas, or huts. We return to Vladimir Station. Our train has already put on steam, and we quickly depart. Vladimir is located only a stone's throw from constantly expanding Moscow, the city that finally took over Vladimir's position as capital city of Russia. We arrive in Moscow at one of the 9 train stations in which the capital city prides itself. The arrival of a steam engine at this crowded station leads to a number of curious spectators. Moscow, with its 9 million inhabitants, is by far the biggest city of Russia. It's a fast-growing metropolis with a large number of beautiful buildings. The beautiful fountains in Alexandrovsky Garden provide the city with a cheerful sight. During the regime of Stalin, a lot of things were destroyed in the city. Buildings which, for whatever reason, were standing in the way were blown up. This enormous cathedral met with the same lot, but in the meantime, it's been almost entirely rebuilt. A visit to Moscow isn't complete without visiting the Kremlin. The Kremlin probably dates back to the 11th century and is enormous. The walls around the Kremlin are 2.5 kilometers long. Here many struggles for power have taken place. Ivan the Terrible, Catherine the Great, Napoleon, Lenin, Gorbachev, and Yeltsin. All of them have sent Russia in a new direction from this very same Kremlin. This small prayer room is situated next to the Red Square's entrance. The Red Square is very impressive, with lovely, imposing churches. The Kremlin in Moscow once was the center of the Russian Church. The beautiful St. Basil's Cathedral is an eye-catcher, of course. The name Red Square is a bit misleading, however. The Russian name is Krasnaya Ploshad, which means beautiful square. It's only in the 20th century that the Russian word for beautiful also became the word for red. Opposite the Kremlin, we find GUM, the former State Department store of the Soviet Union, once a symbol for everything that was wrong with stores under the communist regime, long lines and empty shelves. In 1993, the department store was privatized, and now is a symbol of economic progress. However, not by any stretch of the imagination can all Russians take advantage of it. Prices are just too high. Although Moscow is a city where we can wander around for weeks, we set out for the train station again to continue our journey. The train slowly begins to move, and we're leaving Moscow. Our next destination is also the end of our journey. To reach St. Petersburg, we still have 900 kilometers to go. Just when we prepared ourselves for a long and boring journey to St. Petersburg, the train suddenly reduces its speed. And then the train makes an unexpected stop. The inhabitants of the tiny village of Kvoyanaya have heard about our journey and would like to wish us a pleasant trip. After this unexpected stop, we're headed on the last leg of the trip. The journey that has shown us different parts of Russia during these 2 weeks has almost come to an end. After 5,500 kilometers with the White Knight's Steam Express, the end of our journey is within sight. We're back in St. Petersburg, where we began our trip 12 days ago. To catch our breath after this very intensive train journey, we take another leisurely look at St. Petersburg. We visit the cathedral in the Peter and Paul Fortress. The interior is especially impressive, but the cathedral is particularly famous because almost every head of state, from Peter the Great until the Russian Revolution, is buried here. And as a sign of the fact that times are really changing in Russia, they also recently buried the mortal remains of the murdered last Tsar Romanov and his family here. Finally, we visit one of the best examples of the Russian passion for building. The palace of Catherine the Great was completely bombarded during the Second World War. In the meantime, it's been almost completely rebuilt. A tough job, since the main palace alone is 300 meters long. Not only the palace itself, but also the additional buildings have risen again. With a walk through the palace garden, we finish our train journey through Russia.